Well, hello everyone. Ogre27 Kane here today, and we're going to do a review of Baten Kaitos, The Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean for Nintendo Switch. Let's do a little bit of an overview and figure out what we're talking about today. So first of all, this is part of the HD Remaster collection for Baten Kaitos 1 and 2, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean, and Origins. We're only going to be talking about Baten Kaitos, the first one, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean, because Origins deserves its own video and its own review. These are absolutely huge, complete games, and there's a lot to do and a lot to talk about. My overview is going to be a little bit longer today because we're going to discuss some of the changes in this. Now first up, aside from having the typical remaster things you expect, like the visual overhaul and the upgrade in the audio, there's also a ton of new features, including turning off enemy encounters, increasing the game speed, and battle speed. I don't really use a lot of those features in this, as I'm kind of particular to the original. This is one of my favorite GameCube RPGs of all time, and I really have no problems playing it the way it was meant to be played. So one other thing I do have to mention is that this game, being the way it was up-resed and everything, caused a little bit of instability, and I'm playing on the newest update. If you bought this on launch or played it on launch, it was pretty darn broken. They've fixed a lot of that stuff and now it's pretty playable. There are some weird issues, but we'll get into that in our performance section. The other thing that I really want to mention is that this was made by Monolith Software, so if you're a fan of the Xeno games, check this out. Let's start out with gameplay now. So the gameplay in this is a turn-based, card-based RPG that's narrative-driven. The game also has some fantastic features as far as easing you into how the system works. When you first start playing the game, it'll be confusing, and you'll have a bit of a struggle stringing together your attacks and understanding what it means by pairs and straights. As you begin to accumulate classes, you'll be adding cards to your deck and cards to your hand. These in turn will allow you to have a lot more options in the battle system, and a lot of this is handled outside of the battle system too, where you're discovering and finding Magnus and adding them to your deck. Some of these are story driven and some of these are just good old secrets. But I really love how the gameplay in this really forces you to want to explore to find all facets that help out every element to the game. And I'll be completely honest here, the only feature of gameplay I really didn't enjoy, if you saw just a second ago, I was at a church where I had to use to level up and class up. This does not happen automatically as you beat battles. You'll accumulate that experience, but it just goes into a large pool to where you have to go to this church to actually upgrade and level up. It can be kind of a nuisance when you're stuck in a dungeon and you just need to get that little oomph, that little extra strength from grinding to beat that boss. These things aside though, can be solved, and it has a generous auto-save system. So if you need to, you can leave, come back, and find other ways to manipulate how you need to solve the battle. So let's move on to story now. So the story starts out with your main character Kaitos here, and he's just kind of exploring and doing his thing. He runs into this girl Shella, who they find out that she has a pretty important item that was stolen from this empire. This empire is out seeking to revive Malpertio, the god of destruction, and they need this pendant to do it. There are these different gods, if you will, that are seals in the world that are holding this god back. You unknowingly go and break these seals and resurrect this god, and in turn doing so, Kaitos becomes a bit of an interesting enigma. This game almost has a bit of a Chrono Trigger segment where your main character disappears, and it's really up to you how you want to solve that problem. It's not quite as open-ended as Chrono Trigger, but it does add a really cool element to the story, and it really does push you to connect with Kaitos. Now the last thing I want to mention about the story is that all of the characters in this game are very well written, and you will want to see all of their connections and ties. I'm not going to spoil any more because it really is a highlight of this game, so controls and audio are up next. So first up, let's talk about the controls, because there's not a lot to say here. It is a traditional RPG, you really only need a couple of buttons to select between your attacks and move around. Since the latest update has come in though, the C-Stick does work now and you can select properly between the numbers on the cards. That was really the biggest problem with the first release on this game, and since then they fixed that. So let's move on and talk about the audio. The audio in this game is fantastic. I love all the soundtracks and the music to this. The only downside is that it's all done with Japanese voice acting, so you'll have to read quite a few subtitles. Kind of a downgrade from the GameCube, but let's take a listen to it. Pretty darn cool. Graphics and animations are up now. And let's talk about some of the updates. So this game originally came out on the GameCube and looked fantastic. It ran very smooth and had a fantastic performance. Since then, the original release of this game was very broken, and the newest updates and patches have fixed a lot of that. The only issue I really truly have with this game is its performance. There are many times that the game has weird frame rate stutters, not just during the cutscenes or the gameplay, but during the battle system. And considering how fast-paced the battle system is in this game and how it really requires you to jump between your cards and the numbers on them, having a frame skip when you're in the middle of selecting one of these attacks is really annoying. It did kill me a few times in a few battles, and it made some of the later battles kind of a struggle to jump back and forth. Now, that being said, once you get used to these things and you kind of learn to plan for them, they're not as big a deal as you think, and the game is completely playable. But be aware, if you played the original GameCube one, this will throw you off and it is kind of annoying. The only other thing I really need to mention is how beautiful and timeless the artwork is in this game. It holds up fantastically, and this game is a gem to behold. So let's move on to combat now. Now, this is probably the most contentious part of this game. You either really love or you hate the combat in this. And you either prefer the combat in this or you prefer the combat in Origins. I'm kind of weird because I'm in the minority. I prefer the combat in this version. I do not like having the pooled card system that you have in Origins. Having each deck individualized and maintained the way you want really allows for a lot more customization in this game. That's not really a problem per se for a lot of people, but for me personally, that's why I enjoy this one so much more. The other thing I need to say is that the combat in this game is difficult at first to really grasp how it works, and the game does not give you anything to set you up. A lot of the combat in this game is basically luck. Getting the right cards in the right order and the right draw is really the crux of winning some of the later battles. This can be a little annoying to some people because it doesn't allow you as much control as you like, but the satisfying thing about it is when you get one of those straights or one of those 4-of-a-kinds or 5-of-a-kinds, it's really cool to see how much it increases your attack power. The game is completely playable and beatable without having to utilize these mechanics if you just power level, but if you really want to get a grasp at beating this game and its best is really understanding the combat system. The only other thing I gotta say is that you have to be patient and give this game plenty of time to understand that combat. It'll take 5 or 10 hours before it really starts to shine. So let's do conclusion now. So in conclusion, I am absolutely ecstatic to see that Bandai Namco gave this game the HD remaster treatment. Not only that, they gave us 1 and 2 complete on the cartridge. The only annoying thing is the update that fixes the C-Stick issue is not on the cartridge. So that is something you'll have to weigh and measure. Now, I will say, being that this game is probably going to be a bit of a shorter print run, and it's not a terribly popular game too, this cartridge will hold its value and become one of those hidden gem rare RPGs later on. I really think that this game is worth your time, and I'm really happy with the effort put into it. I enjoyed this game and it gave me a lot of nostalgia, but I understand if you're a new gamer and a new RPG fan, and this game would appear clunky to you and not really worth your time. Having a good 5 or 10 hour window into the game to really make it good is a bit to grasp. So, with that being said, thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.
即の扉、これでまた一歩。さあ、